to a very big story, viewers, on a day when the RBI has come out and once again hiked inflation estimates. But viewers, over the last 2 weeks or so, fuel prices have begun to soar. In just the last 10 days or so, we are paying 10 rupees more from our pocket at the pump. In fact, the average Indian spends more than the residents of most countries on 1 litre of fuel, even though they earn vastly less than the residents of those countries. At a time when we're just getting back on our feet after being pushed down by punishing waves of COVID, this price rise of fuel, and you can see the prices on your screens, viewers, just about, as I said, a few weeks back, March 25th, well below the 100 mark. Diesel was at 89 rupees per litre. Today, it's about 96 rupees. Petrol, 97 to 105 rupees. In some states, it's a lot more. Look at Mumbai, viewers, already at 120. Diesel crossing the 100 mark. All of this, and let's look at some of the other figures. There you can see them, viewers. Mumbai, Delhi, all of these telling us that these prices are on an upward swing. And it's beginning to burn huge hole in our pocket. This is also because there has been a knock-on effect. Vegetable prices and other basic necessities are becoming more costly, cutting into our budgets, into our household budgets. Look at lemon, 200% increase. Green chilies, 140% increase. Look at lemon. Lemon goes from 80 rupees a kilo to 240 rupees a kilo. Green chilies from 50 to 120 rupees a kilo. Vegetable oil, 145 to 185. 27% increase. Auto fares, 25 rupees 2 kilometers to 32 rupees kilometer. And a lot of material, viewers, is also taken through public transport. So trucks, etc., all charging more. Electricity also going up, 15%. So the outgoes are only increasing, viewers. Tonight, we're going to examine this issue from every conceivable standpoint. We're going to break down the debate into 5 questions. And we're hoping for a constructive conversation with not just political stakeholders, but also economists. Let's take all the questions, viewers. First, is fuel price really unregulated? Before elections, there is a freeze. Post-poll, the price is hiked. Now, we are told, viewers, that the government has no role in regulating the price of fuels, but I will show you data. Seems to suggest that before most elections, mysteriously, fuel prices stop climbing. There is no increase, which suggests there's some interference. Second question, how much more will fuel price rise over the next few weeks? Are we going to end up paying a lot more? Or is there some relief because of softening global prices, etc., etc.? How much threat does fuel price actually pose to growth? RBI today revised its inflation estimates upwards, viewers. That also will have an impact on demand, consumption, etc., which is slow growth. There are many knock-on effects. We'll discuss them. Does the government justification have merit? The government has come out and issued at least 2 statements via the finance minister and the oil minister. Both have come out and rationalized it. But do these justifications have merit? We will look at them in detail. Viewers, let's look at the last but not least. Is the opposition grandstanding over fuel price? What is the scenario in opposition-ruled states also? We look at that. We'll really look up all these issues. I also expect you to interact with us. I would like you to Viewers, express your views over the next half an hour, 40 minutes. Let's now look at the first question in detail. And let me just take you through a little bit of history. In the recently concluded assembly elections, which involved, of course, Uttar Pradesh, between November 4th and 21st March, for a period of 137 days, no change in prices. Absolutely none. November 4th, March 21st. After the poll finished, we've seen a quick escalation. All this time also, viewers, at least some of the weeks, there was a crisis in Ukraine. Let's look at other examples. February 27th, March 9th, 2021. This is before another round of elections in 5 states that included Bengal. No change in fuel prices between February 27th, March 9th, February 26th. EC announced dates for elections in these 5 states. So remember, all through, no change. Even though there was pressure internationally. Fuel prices are actually coming down in some cases. September to November 2020, Bihar elections, 58-day freeze on fuel prices. November 2019, Madhya Pradesh elections, 3-day freeze on fuel prices. April to May 2018, Karnataka elections, 19-day freeze. For some reason, fuel prices didn't go up. And in 2017, Gujarat elections, 14-day freeze on fuel prices. So I'm asking the basic question here. Is the price of fuel really unregulated? As is claimed, or mysteriously someone intervenes to stop the rise? Let's first open this up, viewers. Let's ask that basic question. Shahzad Poonawala, the Bharatiya Janata Party national spokesman, here with us. Karan Bhasin, economist. Dr. Ranganathan, Dr. Santosh Mehrotra, senior economist. Dr. Shantanu Sen, TMC MP. Shahzad Poonawala, I've shown you some data. I'm asking you a direct question. Is fuel price really unregulated, or do you all, whether it's state governments, and I have data for that also, and the central government all say, अच्छा भाई, election का समय है, vote निकल जाएगा, तो थोड़ा राहत दो, अभी price ऊपर नहीं करने का, because भाई vote निकल जाएगा. Is that what's happening really?
Well, Rahul, if this question would have been posed by you prior to 2014, I would have understood your cynicism. Simply because even though the process of deregulating oil prices, petrol prices had begun in 2010, it was never really done with earnestness. And you know that how the UPA government of Dr. Manmohan Singh ran up a bill of oil bonds of almost 1.5 lakh crores, and that too at an interest rate of 6.9 to 8.5%, which we are currently servicing every year, and we've paid about 70 to 80,000 crores in interest and principal amount repayments. And therefore, that kind of cynicism by you prior to 2014 perhaps would have been well articulated. But having said that, Rahul, over the last 1 year, if I'm not mistaken, the global crude oil prices have risen by about 78%, and particularly after the Ukraine-Russia crisis, they have jumped by about 33%. Rightly said by you, we've increased it by 10 rupees over the last few days, which is about a 10.5% increase. And if you see globally, the prices of India are actually quite competitive in the given scenario. And I'm not saying it's a price that we should be paying, but it is in the current scenario, because if you see Israel, it's about 170 rupees per litre, United States, United Kingdom, Germany, all about 150 rupees per litre. And in that context, even though United States and other nations have increased their rates by almost 50% over the last 1 year, that has not been the shock given to the consumers in our country. And that is perhaps because of the better situation that the OMCs are. I would remember that when Manmohan Singh had entered into power, at that time the per litre cost was about 37-38 rupees. And when he left, it was about 71-72 rupees, which is almost an increase of 99 to 100%. And today that increase is around 40 to 45%, no doubt. But this shows that the OMCs, which were burdened with a lot of other kind of bills at that point of time, that is not the situation now, even though we are servicing the oil bonds that was left behind by the UPA.
No, you didn't answer my question. Perhaps you didn't hear it. I understand all these problems. I only asked you, why are there these moratoriums around the time of elections? It's not as if the oil bonds don't need to be serviced at those times. Those are outstanding. So suddenly you feel the need not to charge consumers more or increase in tandem with the international prices. You've been saying they've been rising, but then for 130 odd days, we had a moratorium. And in fact, in the United States, per litre of unleaded petrol is much less, sir, than we pay here in India. I think it's about $3, $3.20 per gallon, which is almost 4 litres unleaded petrol. So
no,
just check that.
I'm happy to. All right, so.
Okay, anyhow, let's not get into all
right,
of that.
So
Fair enough.
I can
I'm
read out the
asking you
rates
about
of Israel, 179 rupees, UK 161, Germany 165, Denmark 172, China 111. Anyways, that's not the point. The point you're trying to make is that, look, Rahul,
yes,
there is an increase that the increase in global crude oil prices, by the time it translates into an increase into rates in the domestic markets, these are decisions taken entirely by the oil marketing companies.
So it can take 137 days,
to those
it can take 58 days,
there is a gap.
It can take 19 days and it can take 14 days, you are saying. So are you saying that it can take a large number of days, certain times of the year?
You can always, I think you need to calculate it over a period of a year or a longer period of time, because if you calculate it based on an election cycle, you can come up with many such conclusions. And I think that would be an unfair conclusion. But anyway, these questions should be answered by the OMCs as to how they calculate it and how it translates into domestic markets when they buy something at an international rate.
Okay, so let me just quickly bring in one of our economists, Dr. Santosh Mehrotra, Karan Bhasin, and TMC MP also. First, the Trinamool Congress MP, Dr. Sen. Dr. Sen, how would you like to respond to the BJP? Even in your state of Bengal, sir, your state government actually cut during the election, and I'm just trying to pull out those details, also cut prices, VAT prices there during the election. So I have that West Bengal, VAT on petrol, February 2021, slashed by 1 rupee per litre, and VAT on diesel slashed by 1 rupee per litre. So assembly polls were in March 2021. Was that a coincidence?
See, my personal belief is the situation we are passing through, if anyone wants to be transparent and honest to his own conscience, he will hardly try to justify this 14 times hike in 16 days. We have categorically seen when the international price is decreasing, even then it is in an increasing mode. Number one. Number two, we know that even today, Russia is ready to give us a petrol at a price of $35 per barrel, but India cannot accept it. You just tell me one question, why such price hike was not noticed before UP elections? And why 14 times hike in 16 days? Why the unprecedented inflation we have been experiencing since last few days? Why government is purposefully avoiding the discussion? In our recently held budget session, government has purposefully avoided the discussion. That's why they have made Parliament adjourn sine die. It's absolutely unprecedented incident. The poor are crying. Their kitchens are on. They have set the kitchens on to fire. Even we have seen during the COVID period,
Rahul,
when the international price was decreasing, even at that point of time we have experienced a price hike.
Okay, 1 second. First of all, the discussion, I believe, should have taken place in Parliament. At least we are having it here in the media. 1 second, just give me 30 seconds. There are some viewers who are also calling in, and I want to take viewers. Dr. Ranganathan wants to have his say. Dr. Mehrotra wants to have his say. Karan Bhasin, an economist, also wants to have his say. As I said, there are 5 questions. So I'm going to go section by section, and we're going to get into all the justifications, the counters, etc., one by one. Gautam calling in from Mumbai. Mr. Gautam, good evening. Go ahead with your view, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My contention was this, that whenever there is any such situation where the fuel price goes up or goes down, the current government always quotes that 10 years back or 5 years back, the government followed, did the same thing, but there was no hue and cry. But now I want to ask, like when our respected PM requested us that the subsidy on gas to be given, and we happily gave up that subsidy. Can the politicians, ministers and all, give up the freebies that we get on fuel and show it as a kind of a gesture,
That's a good question. That's a good question. I'll have that posed. 1 second. Chirandeep calling in from Bengaluru. Mr. Chirandeep, go ahead. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Rahul, and to all the panelists. First and the foremost thing, I would like to correct Mr. TMC out there that we don't buy petrol from Russia at $35 a barrel, number one.
Yes. He says we should buy it. He said we should buy it. We should increase our exposure to Russian oil. He didn't say that we do buy it. He says we should buy it. That's what he was saying. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
We cannot keep blaming the central government because the price mechanism was dismantled before 2014. This is the right time now, to bring in fuel under GST, because in my state, in my city, all right, we have a VAT, we have a metro cess which is running in from 1991 at 1%, which means the ICE of whatever the rise is on a daily basis. So I cannot blame the central government. In fact, it's time that the state governments come together, reduce the state taxes, and have the guts to bring in fuel under GST.
That's a good point, Chiranjeev. That's a good point. A large number of state governments also, of course, are giving away welfare measures, etc., relief to people, and therefore they need to fund them. So that cuts across the country. Shankar Narayan calling in from Chennai. Shankar Narayan, please go ahead, sir. Good evening.
Sir, good evening, sir. Regarding this crude oil, we want to change over to electric vehicles and CBG, CNG like that. That we save this kind of fluctuation demand and supply. When we are going like that means we will save the environment also. That is my...
Okay. Okay. Let me bring in Sabdir from Hisar. Good evening, sir. Go ahead.
हाँ नमस्कार सर जी.
नमस्कार जी.
सर मैं ये कहना चाहता हूँ जो ये बीजेपी के नेता जो बार बार जो भी जिस भी चैनल पर जाते हैं ना सर, ये एक ही बात कहते हैं कि तेल के प्राइस हम सरकार नहीं बढ़ाती, कंपनी बढ़ाती है. ये कंपनियां 5 महीने के लिए जब इलेक्शन थे तब कहाँ गायब हो गई थी सर?
ठीक है, आपका बहुत वैलिड सवाल है, यही हमने भी पूछा है. Mr. Subramaniam calling from Chennai. Before I now open it up to our panelists. Yes, Mr. Subramaniam. Go ahead, sir. Good evening.
Good evening, Rahul.
Good evening, sir.
See, my question is, can you break it up into what is the base price, what is the excess duty, what is the duty, VAT, and all those stuff? Can you break it up?
Yes, we can, sir. Yes.
That you do it, then it will make more sense on that. Otherwise, no point in reduction in the...
Yeah, so we have that. We have that information. I will put that information out in just a few moments. We'll break up what is the component of VAT and what is the component of excise, etc. on our screens in just a few moments. I'll just have that done. But do you have a question, or you're just asking for the breakup? We'll give you the breakup if that's your question. Okay, let me just go back to... fine, I get it. Dr. Mehrotra, yes, would you like to respond? On the first question, is the price really unregulated, or is it open to some sort of political suasion here?
Well, in principle, it is unregulated, but in fact, it is not. It is driven entirely by political considerations. I think you've made that very clear. But I need to go back to a little bit of history, because that's where Mr. Poonawalla began. First, let's look at the UPA record. You know, he told us that Dr. Manmohan Singh took over. The price of petrol was at about 30 rupees, and it was about 70 rupees when he left. Does he remember what the international market prices were? International market prices, after being below $50 when Dr. Manmohan Singh took over, had reached $120, $130. In that, that $120 per barrel came down to under $50 within a year of this government coming to power. Point one. And this government has allowed prices to remain high at the same Dr. Manmohan Singh level for this entire period, despite the fact that it benefited from a windfall. Point one. Point two, this government after having raked in over the last 8 years 26 lakh crores from tax revenues on diesel and petrol alone, it has not only managed to pay very easily the 1.5 lakh crores of oil bonds that it inherited, it has very easily paid off the interest on it, because the interest, as the gentleman Mr. Poonawalla told us, was currently at about 70,000 crores. What it has raked in is 26 lakh crores over 8 years. That's the amount of raking in. And what is a petrol and diesel tax? It's an indirect tax. That is how the government decided that it can reduce corporate taxes from 30% to 25%. All of a sudden, when it was already facing a fiscal crisis. In 2019, after having won the election, it decided to reduce corporate taxes, as a result of which the contribution of direct taxes, i.e. personal income tax and corporate taxes, in total revenue, which had been consistently higher under UPA compared to indirect taxes, has risen above indirect tax. And indirect tax is largely being contributed by petrol and diesel, and which is contributing to the inflation. And food inflation, for your information, Rahul, was, according to the RBI bulletin of August 2021, between July 2020 and July 2021, 31%. That's 3 times or more of the food inflation that the Manmohan Singh government was being blamed for in its last 2 years.
Okay.
So so now we are still very well below the international crude prices that Manmohan Singh had to experience, and yet we grew at 8% per annum. This government has mismanaged the economy, therefore the growth rate is down. That's why its revenues are down. On top of that, it has reduced corporate taxes. It is burdening the poor at a time when unemployment is high, when incomes have fallen, and poverty is rising.
Right. Yes, Mr. Poonawalla, yes, you're getting impatient. Yes, please, quick response to him, and then I'll bring in Dr. Ranganathan. Right, yes, go ahead.
No, Rahul. No, I'm not getting impatient, Rahul. Originally, I thought it was a one-on-one format and where we could then have a say, but you have compartmentalized the debate and you have 5 panelists. So therefore, let me answer a couple of things which are very important to give perspective to this discussion. Point number 1, the average inflation over the last 7-8 years under Prime Minister Narendra Modi has been in the range of 5.5 to 6.5%. It's crossed 6% about 7-8 times, even though we were struck by the COVID pandemic. And under Manmohan Singh, it was over 9% continually in the last 2 years of his government, and it crossed double digit over 9 times. We used to buy dal at 200 rupees a kilo. We've not forgotten those days. Even today, when the centre cut customs of 5 and 10 rupees on petrol and diesel, 7 opposition ruled states, including West Bengal, did not cut any of their VAT taxes. By the way, the top 10 prices of petrol, 8 of them belong to Andhra Pradesh, 121 rupees, Maharashtra, 120 rupees, Telangana, 119 rupees, Rajasthan, 118 rupees. I can go on. And if you break up 101 rupee, if you take the price at 1 rupee on April 1st, and you compare what is the breakup of this, the centre earns about 15 or 16 rupees, because whatever the centre also earns, 40% of it gets devolved to the states, and whether the states earn about 26 to 27 rupees out of that, and the base price of petrol being 56, 57 rupees, the dealer commission, etc. So let us understand, and this is after the centre paying for your free vaccines, the centre giving 80 crore people free food for the last 2 years, extending it by 6 more months, running schemes like Awas Yojana, running a multitude of social welfare schemes on which we are spending more. So I hope Mr. Mehrotra has the perspective and he doesn't allow his political lens to cloud his economic lens. This is my only request. If you are doing a discussion, it should be without political lens that Mr. Mehrotra chooses to wear every now and then.
Okay, one second. Let me bring in Dr. Ranganathan. Dr. Ranganathan, yes, your point, Karan Bhasin right next.
Yes.
Yeah, 1 second. Yeah. Dr. Ranganathan, go ahead.
Yes, good evening, Rahul. Can I please compliment you first for your amazing, brilliant stand with the public and secondly for collecting this panel. It's been an absolutely marvelous discussion, and I'm sure for the next half an hour it's going to be even better. There are two issues here and both merit going into, and let me encompass the answers to all the 5 wonderful points that you have raised into 2 minutes or little above that. Number one, Rahul, I totally agree with you. There is no doubt that the fuel hike is a Ponzi scheme run by this government, and all we can do is take part in it even though we know it is a Ponzi scheme. Kare to kare kya? To understand why, we have to go beyond the hypocrisy of the politicians and their spin doctors. The very same people outraging on the fuel hike today were defending it when their government was in power. Do you recall our former PM Manmohan Singh quipping, quote, "Paise ped pe nahi ugte hain," unquote, when he hiked the diesel prices? And the same folks defending the hike today had taken to the streets back then screaming that the government should fall down. How dare they increase 2 rupees per litre? So away from this hypocrisy, let us look at the facts. The UPA did a great thing by deregulating the petrol prices in 2010. And so did the NDA in 2017 by deregulating diesel prices and for introducing dynamic pricing. That's how nations progress, Rahul, through their economies linked to free markets and international supply and demand. But here's the thing. In the last 7 years, the Modi government has increased taxes on petrol by more than 110% and on diesel by around 500%. During this period, it has earned 21 lakh crores from the petroleum sector alone by way of just excise duty. Now, the average Indian basket of crude in 2019 was 50 USD. Today, this morning, it is 100 USD or 101 USD. But were the retail petrol or diesel prices back in 2019 half of what they are today? No. They were 80 rupees. Today, they are 100 or so rupees. So by putting such high taxes and bleeding the petroleum sector dry, this government has in effect delinked what it had linked before. This is perfidy of the highest order. Kis tarah ka deregulation hai? Number two, non-BJP states, as correctly said by Shehzad, like Maharashtra, Bengal, Punjab, have the highest fuel prices, almost 15% more than BJP states like Gujarat and UP. But all the outrage is reserved for the center. Why? Because you speak truth only to Modi and never to Didi of Uddhav. Final point, Rahul, and it's important. Now you can say, fine, the government needs this 21 lakh crore to run the nation. Sure. After all, we are a welfare state. Someone has to pay for free vaccines, housing, water, Ujjwala, Ayushman, toilets, roads, sure. But when you see this money being wasted, going into propping up 1,800 public sector units, 400 of them being non-functional and debt-ridden, when states have a built-up liability of 60 lakh crores, when PSU banks have NPAs totaling 10 lakh crore, when you see the government happily in the business of running businesses, is this not corruption? I say it is. Bhai, hamara paisa hai. And especially at a time when you want money in the hands of the citizen, not the government. Rahul, just 10 seconds. Bringing fuel under GST would be a great step. In fact, Nitin Gadkari had demanded this back in 2018, but his own government got cold feet. अब जाए तो जाए कहां, करे तो करे कहां? हर साल मां के कंगन की तरह ये ऑयल बॉन्ड्स ले आते हैं कि भाई हम, अरे भाई, UPA was voted out. You were voted in, not to repeat failed experiments.
Dr. Ranganathan, I couldn't agree with you more. That's absolutely the way it should be. One second. Let's just quickly get in Karan Bhasin. He hasn't spoken. Mr. Bhasin, your point of view on some of what has been said, and on the main question that I've posed.
Right, absolutely.
Can you just explain these freezes that mysteriously happen just before elections? Just tell me that.
I honestly can't explain them, to be very honest. It's very surprising, and I would say that every political party
No, are you surprised? You didn't know about this, Mr. Bhasin?
No, I know, absolutely know about it. I'm surprised that it's such a nice experiment that has been going on in India for a very long time. And I think every political party does it, and it's absolutely unquestionable that this should be stopped. Because market prices should be allowed to determine prices, and if prices of fuel has to go up, then they should be allowed to go up.
So what you're saying is that in principle, of course, we have deregulation, but that is politically sort of controlled. So you have a situation where
but let me complete my broader point on this particular issue.
Yeah.
I mean, we can have this discussion again and again next year, next to next year, when there is a next oil shock, because there will be such shocks that will come from time to time. And it will not lead to any conclusion. The only possible solution to this problem is to limit the ability of various governments to do such experiments. And that's possible only when you privatize OMCs so that they are independent of government control, and two, bring GST, bring oil under GST. But no state government wants to bring oil under GST because large fiscal deficits of state governments are financed by oil. Same is also true for the central government. Mr. Malhotra was giving us a very nice, elaborate macro picture, which I, of course, disagree with. And I don't think that's completely honest, because you can't say that central government raked in so much of money from oil prices. Look at where the fiscal deficit was in 2014. And I'm not talking about the official fiscal deficit. I'm talking about the off-budget balance sheets, a practice which was continued even by the NDA government during its initial years. It is only now that we have acknowledged that the borrowing levels were consistently high throughout this period. So if you really want to spend on roads, etc., you need to rake in money.
And someone has to pay.
Of course, someone has to pay. On the point of corporate tax, because on the point of corporate tax, I vehemently disagree with him that this has been done to reduce corporate tax rates. I think he should go and look at where the global corporate tax rates were at that point and what is the Laffer curve effect. I'm sure he will find a very interesting article on this, co-authored by me itself, which says that corporate tax at an optimum rate is at 22%. You cannot grow fast when your corporate sector is leveraged. So you need to give them retained earnings so that they can reinvest in the economy. So if you want high growth, you need to take those measures. You need to take decisions
Mr. Bhasin,
that might be tougher in the short run.
Look, we've signed up for a particular system, but let me tell you, it did hurt when a large number of us had to take salary cuts during the height of COVID, and certain CEOs of the top global companies actually ended up earning more. That really hurt, actually. And that I thought was really hypocrisy. Yes, I don't know if they really plow it back. I hope they do. But we know from experience that also doesn't happen. So I, in principle, agree with you. I mean, look, as someone who backs an open economy, it stands to reason. Incentivize those that are creating wealth, etc., etc. But there is also something called consumption, and we also create wealth. So the middle class does deserve a break, and I think that sometimes you have to just look at the picture. Yes, Dr. Ranganathan, very quickly before I go into the second big question and the third. Yes.
No, I very quickly, it's been an absolutely wonderful discussion, and I'm sure it will remain so. But I want to make one comment that was touched upon very briefly by my good friend Shehzad as well. Incidentally, Shehzad, on a very lighter note, you were defending the fuel price hikes back before 2014 as you're defending Rao as well, but that's the way the river flows. But Shehzad made a comment, very pertinent comment about Dr. Malhotra. And if I may, if he doesn't mind my saying so, I think it's very important, and I hope he answers this. Because yes, some of his criticism is valid. If you've seen what I have said or heard what I have said over the last 2 or 3 minutes, I have blasted this government. But Mr. Malhotra, time and again, somehow gives a blank check to the states. For example, he's talking about high unemployment. He doesn't break it down. And if he does, he will realize that the highest unemployment is in Congress or non-BJP-ruled states. Then he talks about government raking in 21 or 27 lakh crores. Absolutely. Yes, that criticism is valid. But he doesn't say that it was the Modi Sarkar that has increased the money that is to be spent on states. He doesn't talk about the fuel price hike that is more in the non-BJP ruled states than in the BJP ruled states. So, everyone is to blame. But it is unfortunate that a scholar or an academic like Dr. Malhotra is apportioning all the blame to BJP. Let's be balanced about this.
Okay, let's be balanced about it. Let's also look at some of the other questions.
Rahul, just 2 seconds on that.
Yeah, one second, sir. Please, 1 second. And just going to the other 2 questions.
Can I respond?
Yeah, I will get you in.
People are attacking me left, right, and center, and you're not giving me a chance to respond.
I'll give you 30 seconds. Just give me 30 seconds. I just want to go on to 2 other questions. These are just information points. I'll come right back to you and you can respond. Please. There's no this thing here. How much more will fuel price rise? Well, let me just give you some information. Experts say the retail price of fuel needs to be hiked to about 52 rupees, that is paisa, 52 paisa, 60 paisa for every $1 per barrel rise in the price of crude oil. The price of Brent crude has risen by about 28.4 per barrel since November 4th to $108.9 per barrel, indicating that fuel prices could see further hikes of between 5.5 to 7 or 8 rupees per litre each on petrol and diesel. So the pain is not going to go away. It's going to increase for a little bit more. And how much more will fuel price rise? Well, Brent crude oil price, 4th November 2021, $28.4 per barrel, now $108 per barrel. Impact, and I told you the maths, it comes down, if you just did the maths view on your screens, it comes to about 5.5 rupees to about 7.7 rupees 80 paisa, etc. How much threat does fuel price pose to growth? Well, we already told you about daily consumables. Price will accelerate, leading to inflation and hurt growth. Price of edible oils. Increase in price of coal will mean electricity costs will also increase. Gas, feedstock make up for 80% of fertilizer costs. And there's a whole list, viewers. It has a knock-on effect, and those are some of the facts. Yeah, Dr. Mehrotra, go ahead. Quick response.
Two very quick points. First of all, I think your viewers need to understand what is the contribution of central taxes to the total price and the contribution of state taxes to the total price. The cost of producing and marketing the petrol on a 100 rupee price, pump price, is roughly about 35 rupees. You add 2 or 3 rupees of dealer commission. Then comes the big chunk of roughly 45 rupees by the central taxes, excise and cesses and surcharges. The contribution of the states is half of that, meaning no more than about 20 rupees or so. So let's just keep a perspective. I'm being told perspective. I want to remind our viewers about what is the real perspective. So the responsibility for raising the price of petrol rests to a very significant extent upon the central government. Point one. Point two, the central government has forced itself into a corner over the last 5 or 6 years. How and why? Because since the demonetization, the growth rate of the economy has been systematically coming down, so that pre-COVID, the pre-COVID year, the 1920 growth rate of the economy was barely 4%, and during the FY21, the first year of COVID, the mismanagement of the economy led to a contraction of the Indian economy, which was more than 2.5 times the contraction of the global economy. In the midst of a silent fiscal crisis that this government was facing in mid-2019, it makes the decision to reduce corporate taxes. I'm all for the Laffer curve being taken into consideration and a reduction of our corporate taxes.
So what's the point?
What did Mr. Jaitley promise us in my point, listen to let me finish my point. 2015 he promised he's going to reduce the corporate taxes 1 percentage point each year from 30 to 25 over 5 years. It didn't do it for 5 years. Suddenly, when the government is facing a silent fiscal crisis, it decides to actually reduce the corporate taxes from 30 to 25%, despite the fact that at that point it lost 1.5 lakh crores, 1.5 lakh crores
Rahul,
per annum at a time when it was facing a silent fiscal crisis. This is the reason why it has been raising
three hands raised.
All
three hands raised.
Particularly the excess.
Three hands raised.
That's the problem. At a time when unemployment and...
three hands raised. 1 second. Before that, some viewers. Srinivas calling in from Chennai. Mr. Srinivas, go ahead. Good evening.
Hi, Rahul.
Hi.
I have a couple of points to make to the BJP spokesperson.
Please.
Point number one, kindly please do not raise the bogey of oil bonds anymore. Yes, they were raised by the MMS government whenever they were. But with the tripling of excise duty done 2 years ago, the government has earned enough and more to cover the liability till 2026. I don't remember the exact numbers, but I'm sure all the money, the liability has been covered.
Some 20 lakh crores.
Do not use that excuse.
Yeah, some 20 lakh crores.
The second point is that please do not refer to the mismanagement or the sins committed by the MMS government or go back to Nehru's time. We have been fed up with that government and we have thrown them out. Please understand the situation today and understand what the people want and react to the situation today. Let's not hear about what we are doing great compared to what those governments did.
So no equivalences. Keep it to what you are doing. You are in power. You need to answer. Okay. Franklin calling in from Bengaluru. Go ahead, please.
Yes, sir. Sir, thank you for giving this opportunity. So I'm very glad to be in your show now, and I'm talking to you all. And I would like to thank all those people who's there and explaining to us. Sir, see, I work as a housekeeping boy. I'm very proud to say. And, you know, I travel every day for 40 to 80 kilometers per day.
Yes, sir.
And, you know, hello?
Yes, sir.
Are you listening, sir?
Yeah.
Yes. So I travel every day 40 to 80 kilometers. So now my salary is 16,000 rupees, where I cannot pay my petrol money. Even I cannot go on time in the bus if I want to take. But why the people are making it so high? I don't understand. Please help us, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Please help us. Gridhar calling in from Hyderabad. Yes, go ahead, Mr. Gridhar.
Yeah, Rahul, I have just one point. I don't want to get into the politics in tax between UPA and NDA. I am a common man paying income tax.
Okay.
And I just want to say, petrol and diesel is a luxury. I am ready to pay 150 rupees as long as my tax goes to the common welfare schemes. I am ready to pay 150. I am not going into the politics of this. If I am happy, this government at least giving this welfare scheme, my tax is going to the right people. So I don't mind paying 150 or 200.
You don't mind.
This
you
is
don't
my
mind.
Very humble request to every one of us here.
So you're an altruist. You have no problems with that. Respect your point of view, sir. Rajiv from Mumbai. Yes.
Yes, Mr. Shivshankar.
Great. Yes.
I just want you to convey through Mr. Poonawalla to Mr. Modi that I want today's income and prices of 1962, if it is possible. Modi hai to mumkin hai. And secondly, I don't mind paying any price if the government is knowing what it is doing exactly.
Okay, well,
Hello.
Yeah. Okay, so some amount of humor there. Okay, sarcasm included. Yes, Mr. Poonawalla, very quickly, sir. Yes, go ahead. You want to respond?
Yeah. First of all, Rahul, before this show ends, I want to know the actual source from where this 21 lakh crore rupee killing that we are being spoken about is coming from anybody who can authenticate it from an authentic source, not from some source which is biased, but from some authentic source. As far as the breakup of 1 litre, if it costed 101.81 rupees, and I'm telling you April 1st rate, and I'm giving you the breakup, the base rate being 53.34 rupees, 20% freight, VAT being 16.54, dealers commission 3.83, excise 27.90, of which 40% goes to the states, which means 11.16 goes back to the states. Effectively, the states get 27 to 28 rupees from that, and the center, which after giving this 40% to the states, is also spending on schemes like free rations, free vaccines, Awas Yojana, Nal Se Jal, etc., etc. But having said that, leave that aside. I am asking you the 7 states that did not cut a single rupee of VAT. They cut VAT, they cut taxes on imported liquor, like example Maharashtra, where I come from. They made a killing of 12,000 crore rupees. Today, ask them where did they spend that 12,000 crore rupees. Also, Anand is right when we talk about unemployment. Rajasthan has the highest unemployment. Last month it was 33%. This month it is 25%, almost 3 to 4 times of the figure they quote for the nation or for the national average, which is the CMIE figure. Now, 4th point, you are saying don't go back into history, all of that. I agree. But these oil bonds must be discussed simply because, Rahul, you are a corporate organization. Times Now is a corporate organization. Imagine if one second. No, we have not paid them off. They continue to be paid off because they have a 8.5% interest. Who takes? Nobody was taking loans at 8.5% interest. No bank was giving 8.5% on FDs. But Manmohan Singh, the economist, got oil bonds done, and we have to pay them because it's a sovereign. It's a sovereign commitment. Okay. We have to pay 8.5% interest, and therefore, by the time we end up paying this, please calculate how much it would be. But but I want to ask you one question. Rahul. One question, Rahul. If you had a company and you started with somebody who had mismanaged it for that you had a loss for a large amount, and you had to pay off the debts of that company, and then caller and said, oh, but you're not making profit because you're paying off loans and losses of earlier. Should that not be highlighted before the public? Today we've cut customs on steel, we've cut customs on masoor from 30% to 10%, we've cut customs on soya bean oil, on palm oil, on sunflower oil from the high 30s to the low 10s. Is that not a relief? 20,000 crore rupees relief has been given. Does this not affect the common man? I'm saying it very humbly. These things Mr. Mehrotra will not tell you because he's wearing those specs of political, which are political.
Karan Bhasin, yes.
Right. Three quick points to add. I absolutely appreciate what's happening on the trade front. I think that's the way to reduce input costs, including of even coal with the new Australian free trade agreement which has been inked. But on the point of taxes and states, we also need to keep it in perspective that the central government is giving from the GST compensation a lot of money to states. And that is assumed at a 14% nominal growth rate, and our inflation went down and states are not generating that kind of revenue anymore. So states actually made a windfall during this period, and yet they continue to have high VAT rate. So the responsibility is more on the states to fix their fiscal mess. And on the larger point that you asked the question, the second question on about what is the likely way the prices are going to go ahead. My sense is that international oil prices have already started to moderate. And I think eventually once this crisis is over, they're going to come down, and that would give some respite, maybe in a month, maybe in 2 months or so.
Dr. Ranganathan,
but that doesn't solve.
I don't remember a time when prices were really slashed, when prices of gas went down a lot. And that happened during the COVID pandemic. We didn't see that inverse happening here in India. Why do you think that didn't happen?
No, it's because petroleum sector is a cash cow. It's as simple as that. Now, 2 points here very briefly, and Mr. Mehrotra should not really mind. I think it's a wonderful discussion. We might be on the opposite sides of on this debate, but so what? Now, when he talks about that proportionately the states have to bear much less blame for this because the increase has been by center, he has to explain A, why he didn't mention that the states have increased the taxes, and B, why have the states increased the taxes? Okay, center has increased the taxes, chalo bhai unko blame karo. States ko increase kar rahe hain taxes. Number one. Number two, as far as he's saying that Modi government mismanaged the economy, I'll leave it to Karan to decide. I don't think, that's a very subjective term in today's. Raghuram Rajan said, this economy the V will never happen. And the V happened faster than he could finish the sentence. Number three, this is most important. And this is where, please give me 30 seconds, Rahul. Actually, I already said India has to be a welfare state. I don't mind the center raking in this money if it is using it wisely. पैसा जा रहा है, सड़कों पे जा रहा है, वैक्सीन पे जा रहा है, घरों पे जा रहा है, पानी पे जा रहा है, टॉयलेट्स पे जा रहा है, उज्ज्वला पे जा रहा है, आयुष्मान पे जा रहा है. I don't mind it. As a middle class, upper middle class, lower middle class, I don't mind it at all because the poor are benefiting. It's a welfare state. Point is, जब पैसा वेस्ट होता है तब दिल पे लगती है, तब चुभती है जब पैसा वेस्ट होता है. Because those who don't care for austerity don't care for posterity.
Okay, why have states jacked up their VATs? And let me just take you through, viewers, some of the graphics on that. Let's pull that out. Tax levied by states. We've got a map for you, viewers, which you can have a look. Manipur 36.50% VAT, Rajasthan 36% VAT plus cess, Telangana 35.20% VAT, Karnataka 35% VAT, Madhya Pradesh 33 VAT plus 4.5 per litre VAT plus 1% cess. Andhra, it just goes on. There are several of these graphics, viewers, that we have for you, which show that it's an easy source of revenue. As Dr. Ranganathan was saying, the highest tax are in Maharashtra, Kerala, Telangana, lowest in Gujarat, UP, Haryana, Himachal. 30 seconds before I hit the break, Dr. Mehrotra, why are states also raising taxes? 30 seconds. Do you have an answer? Can you hear me? Okay, we've lost him. Taking a short break. We'll be right back, viewers. Don't go away. One more question still needs to be answered. We're right back.
Powered by Ebix Cash. हर खुशी के लिए काफी है. Co-powered by 8 PM Premium Black Music CDs. Co-powered by Amstrad. खुशियों की शुरुआत. Co-powered by the new Wagon-R, Dil Se Strong.
Co-powered by Star Health Insurance, the health insurance specialist. SMS STAR to 56677.
ये तो मेरी बात सुनती नहीं. Thank God, Amstrad तो सुनता है. Put on the AC.
Different ages, different stages. Get best protection with Star Women Care Insurance Policy. Always at your doorstep.
अब आप 6 तो नहीं हो सकते, इसीलिए फेबर 6-way चिमनी with 6-way suction and auto clean.
फेबर 6-way चिमनी, ये है 6 का फिक्स.
जनरेटर बंद कर. सिर्फ कैस्ट्रॉल एक्टिव का बेहतरीन 3x प्रोटेक्शन रखे आपके इंजन को हमेशा फिट. अब पाइए 15 रुपए की छूट कैस्ट्रॉल एक्टिव पर.
रंग रंगीलो मोरो बालम आज मोरे घर आयो रे तपती धूप में जैसे
Exceptional airflow and powerful cooling with the new tropical innovation inverter series from General, the Extreme Machine.
Capture the light. Capture the light.
Realme 9 Pro series. Capture the light with flagship Sony OIS camera.
Choose power. Choose safety. Choose comfort. Choose clever. Choose what really matters. The new Skoda Kushaq. Skoda. Simply clever.
Get the grip of good health even after 50. Presenting now Star Health Premier Insurance Policy. Always at your doorstep.
मम्मी जी, आपने एसी ऑफ किया? मैं कर देती हूँ यहीं से.
वैसे मम्मी, ये एम्स्ट्रैड का वाईफाई स्मार्ट एसी है.
मेरे रोहन की चॉइस है. My clever baby. Get real. Get Amstrad.
Viewers, our final question on the debate tonight. Should there be relief for the consumer? Mr. Poonawalla, should there be relief? Should the government consider slashing some of its taxes, both at the state and central level? Should the state governments also go ahead?
Rahul, who do we consider as the consumer? Do we also consider the person who just now the report by IMF has shown that we have ensured that by giving 80 crore people food and rations free of cost, the extreme poverty has been kept below 1%. Do we people who have the privilege of speaking in English, wearing suits, consider them as consumers when they get their house for the first time in the last 70 years, when they get a tap connection for water, when they get a toilet for the first time, or they get rescued from burning wood and taking in 400 cigarettes worth smoke into their bodies because they have got a free gas cylinder? Do we consider them as consumers, or do we only consider the likes of Mr. Mehrotra as consumers? It depends very much on that too. But yes, if we consider the likes of Mr. Mehrotra as consumers, I would request the state governments also, opposition and otherwise, to reduce as much as they can, because they get a share from the center and they also get a large amount of share in the social welfare schemes that are run by the center.
I think, Mr. Poonawalla, you know, there are people who are in different economic stratas of this country. Millions of them are like Mr. Mehrotra, like myself, like Dr. Ranganathan, like maybe yourself. And
like me.
Yes.
And like me.
And we all deserve also some relief. So, you know, the consumer, we can't be selective about the consumer. The consumer, there are many people who have called in today and they've had a problem with, you know, this excessive hiking. So, Dr. Ranganathan, yes.
I understand. I appreciate
Dr. Ranganathan,
no,
yes.
Very quickly, Rahul, things are not going to change simply because you look at the data. Almost half of our yearly budgetary allocation that Ms. Sitaraman gets to distribute, about 30 lakh crores, almost 15 lakh crores comes from the petroleum sector.
It's true.
So things are not going to change. Things never changed and they're not going to change.
Let me tell you, viewers.
And here is the tragedy. Rahul, just 10 seconds. Had we reformed the other sectors,
yes,
we could have put less burden on petroleum.
That's
but agriculture में आपको farm loan देना है, आपको farm waiver देना है, 1 lakh crores का 60 lakh. तो सारा पैसा जो हम यहाँ से कमा रहे हैं, वो ये बेचारे को मार रहे हैं और जहाँ distribute कर रहे हैं, वो 6 sectors हैं.
You see, the consumer that is well organized, that can vote in a group, will get the relief. The consumer that is not well organized and cannot vote in a group will perhaps be considered less vital. Remember
Rahul,
that, viewers.
Just one,
Remember
right.
that. Yes,
Just one
Mr.
quick,
Bhasin. Yes. Yes,
right.
go ahead.
One quick point on the relief. It's not very straightforward, unfortunately, as probably what Professor Mehrotra would say,
How
because
much
reducing
did
the
we
tax...
miss, Karan Bhasin, by how much did we miss our divestment target by? Can you tell me?
Quite substantially. Quite substantially. And
I think that's the point that Dr. Ranganathan was also making.
I know, right.
How many sick units are still being run by the government at huge losses?
I'm on board with
okay.
Right, Dr. Rangas knows that I'm on board on privatization.
So I know it's not I know, sir, you're going to make it a very simple binary, but there are many other issues also. We have been lagging.
Exactly.
We succumbed to pressure again because of vote bank to farmers who are twisting us in Punjab.
But
let's not forget that. And that's just one example. Mr. Bhasin, I'm not going to bring out 10 others. I have 10 other examples, by the way, here.
I know.
I'm running out of... Yeah, time up. I know, Director Saab, time up. There is never time up when you raise a question on behalf of the public, but I will defer to you.
Debate.
We had 3 of our viewers, Mr. Rajiv, Mr. Anil, and Mr. Jeevan. I beg your indulgence, sir. I'm sorry I couldn't come out to you. We've just run out of time. Taking a short break. Viewers, right back.